Well, Benjamin Creme was born in 1922, and in 1959 he was contacted by one of the masters, Ascended Masters, and in 1975 he started Share International, which is kind of like the mouthpiece for who they call Lord Maitreya. And in 1977, Maitreya actually made, according to them, his physical appearance. Or Benjamin Creme has really been, like, again, the kind of like the false version of John the Baptist for Maitreya ever since. Really, he's went around, lectured. He lectures at different various occult groups. He lectures at Masonic halls and these types of things, places where he feels comfortable at. And he's been trying to herald in Maitreya for a long time. They've made many predictions where, they said, okay, he's most likely going to appear within this time frame, and most of the time they've just got everything wrong. So they'll say, well, he could appear any moment, but we don't really know when.
On January 9th, 1959, a student of Alice Bailey and Blavatsky, who was already familiar with the doctrine of the Ascended Masters, Benjamin Creme, would come into contact with powerful forces who would appoint him to introduce Maitreya, the world teacher, to humanity. Creme's first experience is as follows. On January 3rd, 1959, Creme became possessed by an energy, and a message from an outside force said to him, "Go to Blackfriars Bridge, south side, Blackheath side, on January 9th, 9:30 p.m. So on January 9th, 1959, Benjamin Creme followed these instructions and crossed Blackfriars Bridge in London, walking to the south side. There was no one about. It was deserted. There was a car waiting at the far end of the bridge. He walked beside the car and looked inside of it. There were some people in it who he did not know, but one of them was a man who told him he had been receiving messages from the Ascended Masters. From there, Creme started receiving messages again from this force, who he now believed were these Ascended Masters that Theosophy invented. This entity told Creme to pull out his tape recorder. It began giving Creme long dictations, which he repeated into the tape recorder. The entity said, "Now our master Maitreya himself has something important to tell you." Creme then claimed to be overshadowed by Maitreya, this leader of the Ascended Masters. In a sense, he was possessed by Maitreya. Creme claims that the experience was that of total identification with everything and everybody in the world, a kind of universal experience such as he had never felt. He was filled with a foreign tremendous energy. Creme claimed to have seen a vision of himself in the future, as well as Maitreya, the world teacher, who ushers in the age of Aquarius, one world system. Later he was instructed that he would help introduce Maitreya to the world. Since then, Creme started an organization called Share International. They have a website as well. It is aimed at promoting Maitreya and the teachings of Theosophy and the New Age. According to Share International, in the Swahili edition of the Kenya Times, Maitreya made an appearance June 11, 1988, to a local congregation in Nairobi, Kenya. The editor of the Swahili edition of the Kenya Times, a veteran journalist named Job Matungi, witnessed the event and took some pictures. A summary of his article as it appeared in his newspaper is as follows, quote, "The tall figure of a barefooted, white-robed, and bearded man appeared from nowhere and stood in the middle of the crowd. He was walking slowly towards the new church building, away from the tent. Mary walked with him side by side. I stared at the stranger without blinking, wafted on top of his turbaned head, his feet, and his entire body. In clear Swahili, which had no traces of accent, the strange man announced that the people of Kenya were blessed, especially those who had gathered at the venue that afternoon. We are nearing the time of the reign of heaven, but before that I shall come back and bring a bucket full of blessings for all of you," the man said. A bucket full of blessings is a reference to the astrological symbol for the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is depicted as a man carrying a pitcher of water in the zodiac. But continuing with the article, quote, It took the crowd nearly 20 minutes to recover after the man left the meeting in a car belonging to a Mr. Gurnam Singh, who offered to give him a lift. But it will probably take Mr. Singh his lifetime to recover from the shock he got 2 minutes later. On reaching the bus terminus, the man informed Mr. Singh to stop the car. On getting out, he walked a few paces beside the road and simply vanished into thin air.
The Christ. The Christ is really not the name of an individual. It's the name of a great master, a great, powerfully, highly evolved man. In fact, the master of all the masters. And the masters are men like us who have really preceded us in evolution.
Lord Maitreya is not a name which most Christians would associate with the Christ. What is his relationship to the Christ?
Maitreya and the Christ are one and the same individual, and he worked through Jesus by overshadowing Jesus 2,000 years ago in Palestine. His consciousness entered into that of Jesus at the baptism, and from the baptism to the crucifixion, Jesus was the Christ. This time, the Christ himself, the Lord Maitreya himself, has come into the world.
Benjamin, why has he returned now? Is there any particular relationship? Are there some antecedents to it?
I'm a student of esotericism, and that tradition posits the whole history of the race and the reappearance not only of the Christ but of a succession of avatars down through the ages. There has never been an age, a cosmic cycle, without such a teacher coming before humanity, teaching, giving us the steps which will lead us on to a further expression of our potential, which is our potential divinity.
So is this really the message of all these teachers, is to be sort of a coach for humanity in a sense? Is that
Yeah,
their
the
purpose
teachers.
for being here?
Indeed.
Not to erect religions, or is it?
Well, religions have most times been erected around them, but they themselves never claimed to be divine. But most teachers have been made into, even the Buddha, who didn't even postulate a God. He is made into a god, worshipped by Buddhists and so on. The Christ is made into a god by his followers, and Muhammad, if not exactly a god, is nevertheless worshipped as if he were a god.
And didn't Jesus say not to create idols?
Indeed.
Yet
all of
was
these
idolized.
teachers have been idolized. They have all been put up into heaven or nirvana or someplace well out of the way so that humanity could get on with its everyday corruption. That's what it's all about. If there is nobody actually, you know, living among you as a living presence and a living teaching, then of course you can be as corrupt as you like. That's what humanity does. But then the Master said, well, you've heard something today which has changed your view of things. The time is coming when you will be expected to act upon this and affirm his coming. He said that on 2 occasions, and then he dropped the whole subject for years and years and years, and I gradually forgot about it. Until 1972, when the Master began to train me and prepare me in very precise and scientific ways for the work which I've been doing ever since, which is really preparing the way somewhat for the Christ, creating the climate of hope, of expectancy for his coming, so that he can enter our lives without infringing our free will. That's what it's all about.
Because of the fact that Maitreya, the Christ, does not fit the exact mold of the traditional picture of the Christ, that some people would be a little bit skeptical and may even wonder if this is the Antichrist that you're talking about.
Oh, indeed. It's a completely mistaken idea of what the Antichrist is. The Antichrist is not a man, it's an energy. It's a force. It's deliberately released to break down the old order. It was released in Roman times through the Emperor Nero to break down the Roman dispensation to prepare the way for Christendom. It was released again in our time through Hitler, with a group around him in Nazi Germany, together with a group of militarists in Japan and another group in Italy. And these 3 powers, the Axis powers, in the war with the Allies from 39 to 45, embodied the energy we call the Antichrist. It has been, it's gone, it's done its destructive work. It is behind us and has prepared the way for the coming of the Christ.